This video is going to focus a bit on the debate differences and the rules for debate that exist within the House and the Senate because they're not the same. Bills are debated differently depending on which part of Congress we are talking about. All right, so let's start with the House of Reps first. So, obviously, the House of Reps is considerably larger. It has more members. And what this basically means is that rules for debate are like more, right? That debate in the House is more heavily regulated and restricted because there's just so many more people. So, one of the important things to note is that we've already talked about a little bit like what congressional committees are. One of the unique things about the House of Reps is that it specifically has a rules committee. And this committee is made up of representatives and it exists just to determine the specific conditions for how a potential bill will be debated. So it's also important to remember that the committees are basically shaped based on what political party has the advantage in the House of Reps. So it's a major advantage to have a majority on the Rules Committee because you can basically establish what the ground rules for debate are on a particular bill. So before the entire House of Reps gets to like debate and vote on a bill, the Rules Committee will typically attach a rule, like basically, just the conditions for debate to a particular bill. If a closed rule is attached to a bill, it basically means that the bill has to be voted on by the House of Reps the way it has been written. It doesn't allow for changes to the bill once it's introduced. It's almost like take it or leave it. If the Rules Committee decides to attach what's called an open rule to a bill, that basically means that when the representatives are debating it, they could make changes to the bill like from that point forward. All right. Debate in the Senate, because it's smaller, has less members, is definitely less regulated, right? There's less rules for debate in the Senate. There's no rules committee, for example. Um, the main thing we have to talk about with debate in the Senate is that there is something that you can do in the Senate that you can't do in the House, and that's called using the filibuster. So the filibuster is when one senator can basically prevent a bill from being voted on by just giving a long speech and preventing the bill from ever being voted on. This is essentially a tactic that is used by the minority party to prevent the majority party from doing whatever it wants to do all the time. It was written it's not in the Constitution, but it was written into the rules of the Senate a long time ago as a way for, again, the majority party to not be able to just abuse the minority party. This gives the minority party in the Senate some power. Um, a senator that expresses a willingness to filibuster, again, and the whole point is to give a speech, a really long speech that basically would prevent the voting of a bill, can only be ended by what's called a cloture vote. And cloture is basically when 60 senators agree the filibuster can be prevented or stopped. There used to be these epically long speeches that senators would deliver that would, again, be done to prevent a bill from being voted on. But today, because this whole process is considered to be such a waste of everybody's time, is that since the 1970s, most senators don't even have to give the actual speech. They just announce their intention to filibuster. And this is called what we call a silent filibuster, right? So you're not actually doing the speech giving, you're just announcing your intention to filibuster, and that's usually enough for the majority party to basically move on without a vote. All right. These are the rules of the filibuster. When you're giving the speech, you're not permitted to leave the Senate floor. You're not allowed to sit down. You're only allowed to eat hard candy from the Senate candy desk, like crazy rules. You can drink milk or water. You can't go to the bathroom. You don't have to stay on topic, which is the most frustrating thing. You can talk about whatever you want, basically to prevent the voting of the particular bill you're protesting against. And you are periodically allowed to take questions from your fellow party members to give you a break to rest your voice a little bit. You can see the 11 longest filibusters in American history. Strom Thurmond holds the record. He basically, in 1957, spoke for 24 hours and 18 minutes straight in an attempt to basically filibuster a very important piece of civil rights legislation, the Civil Rights Act of 1957. He spent most of that time reading from pages of the phone book and had prepared himself in advance. He had sat in a sauna for the days leading up to his filibuster attempt sucking the moisture out of his body, lessening, hopefully, when he was giving the filibuster, his urge to have to go to the bathroom. It's also important for you to see that as you look at this chart, the filibuster is very much something that has been used much more in modern times. So, again, the filibuster was written into the Senate's rules to basically adhere to the idea of majority rule, but acknowledging that the minority party has to have some rights too. And this was a tool that the minority party could have to protect itself. Um, it was supposed to be used and was used for most of American history just for like really special circumstances. But as you can see, since the 1970s, basically what is happening is the minority party is just using it to obstruct the majority party from doing anything. So instead of being used in really special circumstances, the minority party is using it all the time to basically prevent the majority party from passing laws within the Senate. It's one of the primary reasons why Congress is passing less laws today than it was like generations ago. If you look at the current balance of power in the United States Senate, there are 51 Democrats and 49 Republicans. So you would think in a perfect world, that's a huge advantage for the Democrats because they have the majority. And as long as all the Democrats like stick together, they should be able to pass the laws they want to pass. But unfortunately, they are not filibuster proof. Unfortunately for the Democrats, that would require 60 because that is what you need to stop filibusters. So it's not enough to have a majority, right? You have to have 60 if you want to be filibuster proof against the minority party.